Welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. My friends, every time I finish a Joel Goldsmith book, I think I don't need another one. But this Mystical Eye is beautiful. And it's interesting how grace and guidance has led me from one to another. And this one, I can say again, I don't need another one, and I'm sure I will. But Joel has a way of writing where you feel you're hearing the message fresh every single time. The mystical eye. The mystical eye, Joel just wanted us to know what that was. What is the eye? And what is the eye trying to say to us? Is it the personal eye? Is it the divine eye? He does a quote at the beginning of the book about, I stand at the door and knock. Whoever hears my voice and opens the door, I am with you. And so opening the door, what is the door? The door is consciousness, individual consciousness. We all are one, we're all together. The eye is the divine eye. It's God, it's grace, it's love, it's everything but the personal eye, which is the eye where we make up what we make up in fear. It's the plane that we are born into that's inundated with what we really should be thinking, what we need to be afraid of, all that information that has been going on for centuries. And Joel is trying to help us as a mystic to overcome this dimension, this plane, which is the human being plane, and go to the divine mystical eye. So if we're going to go to the divine mystical eye, and the door is knocking, and we open it, it's so simple, Joel. I could almost say this is the end of the monologue. We open the door and we listen. Joel is trying to help us see that cutting through this dimension with everything going on in the human sense, and that's where we have good, we have evil, we have powers, and more than one. There's only one power, omnipotence. Joel, that's one of his major principles. There is only one power. So if you see something in the human plane that looks powerful, the job, which it really can look and feel that way because we've been educated, it's the plane we live on, and it's what we're supposed to be looking at. It's what we've been told is real. But if we don't believe in two powers, we only believe that God is omnipotent, and the only power, then what we have to do is dissolve what we think we see. And we do that by meditation. We do that by resting in the eye within us, the eye that is in our consciousness that wants to speak to us. So another principle of the infinite way, which is the movement that Joel created. As a Christian Scientist, he moved into this other dimension because he didn't want to deal with metaphysics. He didn't want to overcome a fever or fix a leg. He wanted to go to the point where he didn't see. He saw a nothingness of form, of anything that was frightening to us. He nothingized it, which is a very interesting word. He dissolved it, and the mystical eye is how he was able to do that. He experienced the mystical eye. It took him to a place where he really felt he understood what we were here to do. We are here to glorify God. We're here to share and enliven the Word. So to share and enliven the Word, we've got to understand that the eye, the mystical eye within us, is the truth, and that everything else isn't real. So that demands a lot of cutting through a thought dimension, the mind. And that takes the work, and this is what the mystical eye is trying to help us with, that to understand it really helps, that you can cut through everything that you think you see, knowing that the only truth is the omniscience. Now, omniscience is the only intelligence. If we see someone, a human being out there that looks very intelligent and has a truth for us, but it has some negativity to it, it's good to step back and say the only wisdom is from God. So then we have to even let go of even the good stuff. This is what's so interesting. Even the good stuff and the bad stuff and the evil and the good, all of that is not the mystical I. All of that in this dimension as human beings has to be cut through, and the mystical I is waiting for you. Now I stand at the door and knock. I is waiting for you, patiently waiting for you. Consciousness is the door. And the mystical I says it over and over again. Sit quietly and let me come in. Open that door to your consciousness. So if you're going to open the door to your own consciousness, it requires that you be very still. You want to hear the still small voice. Now that requires some deep, deep, peaceful meditating. There is a womb of silence Joel talks about in The Mystical I, which I think is a really beautiful analogy when he talks about creation and eternity, and he looks at the womb of silence. Let's say there are no people here. We've got trees, we've got snow in the north, and we've got warmth in the south, and everything is like breathing in a rhythm. Let's just go back. Let's just pretend we're in eternity for a moment without human beings. And there's this beautiful, I like to think almost of a heartbeat. Everything knows what it's doing. God created everything perfectly, and everything is in divine rhythm. Everything is breathing and living and doing nothing except relaxing in the love and the peace and the joy and the perfection of its consciousness. So human beings come along, and it's like the story of the garden in Eden. They get a little lost, they get a little out of harmony with this rhythm, this breath of life. It decides it wants to be separate. It decides it might want to do something at someone's expense. It decides to manipulate. It decides it might want to control. This human nature might think it knows everything that it needs to know and doesn't need anybody. But you see, in the mystical I, we are to go to that state of knowing nothing. So knowing nothing is like a big order for us human beings who are very programmed in science and math and how to live life and religion, and we've just got all this information. But isn't it interesting that Joel might say, how about knowing nothing? If you're a vessel that's already filled with what you need to hear, you've got to realize that all this other stuff, you can't be anything, you have to be nothing. So you can open up the vessel and be filled with your daily existence, your daily assignment, what you're to do. You're under divine guidance. You are loved by God individually. You are here on a mission to share God, to serve your fellow man more than anything else, and you have to yield. So Joel talks about yielding. And yielding is like come to a halt, relax, rest in the presence, and just keep sinking until you really are quiet and you recognize there is nothing but that still small voice. There is nothing else in eternity where you came from and where this divine womb, which was breathing in a rhythm, you're out of harmony until you come back within, and in your meditation, you can hear the still small voice, and that voice guides you 24/7, morning, noon, and night. It is constantly waiting for you, patiently waiting for you, and wanting, it's knocking, it wants you to open the door so it can speak to you. Creation loves you. God loves you. He knows who you are. He knows what your mission is. He's trying to give it to you. So you can go through many missions in your lifetime. I noticed I have, and they've all been perfect. I worked through them. They worked for me. They were magic, and they felt so right, and they were. And then one door opened after another. When they fell short of what didn't feel very exciting or very creative, all of a sudden I felt a little Walking Dead going on, where I needed more fresh life. And that's the creative process. We're all trying to stay alive and fresh and creative, and we share. We really need to share the inner being to have and yield. We have to yield to that consciousness which gives us our life, and it's fresh and it's new, and you never know where it's going to go. It's an intriguing situation. He talks about Christ coming on earth and how sidetracked we can get because there's a veil Religion sometimes puts a veil over our mystical nature. It says, worship the man, instead of worship what the man was trying to tell you that you have. And that is a really interesting piece that I feel is right. It certainly gels with me, that if Jesus, Buddha, Elijah, Moses, if they all had this mystical experience, they wanted to share that. And even Jesus in his time was really weary of saying, if you see me, you see my Father. Those who wanted to make him a king and worship him was not what he had in mind, but he had to be careful on how he said this, because frankly, it's very hard to understand that we all have a Christ mind. I bring it up almost in every show. We all have the inner flame. We all have everything that Jesus Christ had and all the mystics throughout eternity. We have everything, and he was sharing that with us, hoping that we would get the message that please don't worship me. Understand what I gave you. What I have, you have. And so that I really like that I feel such comfort in knowing that I have the opportunity to open my consciousness and share the mission that God has given me to do. And Awaken the Dream TV is my mission. I just kept showing up and really not understanding exactly where I was going, but there was definitely guidance and grace. Grace is just divine love, and it operates in all of our lives so uniquely differently. That to me is what blows my mind about grace and about I, being God, being able to custom design your life, what you're to hear, what's to happen next. But none of this happens unless you go within and hear that still small voice. I mean, even the deeds that folks think are going to so-called get them to heaven, all the good stuff, the good and the bad, none of that mean anything if it's not the voice from God coming through you to guide you. If it comes through someone else or from a preacher, I mean, there are stages where that has worked for me, so that's not putting that down. But where I'm trying to help myself see by talking this way is that Joel has helped me see my own power, my own self-realization, actualization, my own ability. If I listen, I will have everything. The mystical I offers absolutely everything. No sin, no death. We never began, we're never going to end. There's no limitation, there's no disease. Even if you have one or you're dealing with one, to realize that it's part of hypnotism and mesmerism. I think I mentioned in the last show that if you were told you had a cold and you got wet feet, you'd have a cold because you believe it. It's really letting go so deeply of everything for centuries that you've ever been told about human nature, about the senses, the smell, the taste, the feeling, the emotions. All of that is us tripping out of the Garden of Eden saying, I have a life of my own and I'm going to create my own world and my own kingdom, and who needs God? And you know what? That's nothing wrong with that. As we do it, though, it keeps falling short because there's something so much more exciting in the moment, in the mystical I. He talks about the act of commitment, and I want to tell you what that means. We're to love our neighbor as ourselves, loving God with all our heart, our soul, our mind. Yes, we all know that. But this tricky part about what is the act of commitment as a mystic taking on the world. And yes, your neighbor is your neighbor, but your neighbor is also everybody in this whole world, in this whole dimension. We have people that need feeding, clothing, they need help. Everything that we do as we overcome the little I for the only I is that we raise everyone with us. We're to do our share. If we have a talent, we come in as a singer, a dancer, a scientist. Absolutely, we're to do all of these things. We're not all particularly ministers per se, but we all have gifts that we need to use and share. We also have families that I want to talk to you about. Joel says there's only one Father. We don't have a father here. In many ways, we don't have children here. We don't have a lot that looks like it's here because it's time to let go of this dimension. He would say to his disciples, leave your nets and follow me. And it doesn't mean there aren't stages in our life where that isn't going to work, and it's not our assignment and it's not given us to do. But you can get to a stage in your life where you really find you have a very specific message to give, and it's given to you and it's guided. Everything is guided. So it's helpful to me, because I'm a doting parent, to know I can go beyond that and to let go and know that my assignment is going to help everybody. That's my act of commitment for the planet, is that my commitment is for everyone. And yes, I can help in all the little ways every single day, other folks, sharing every other day, every day, with what I have to give. It's the most important reason we're here, to die daily to the little I. The little I is a personal I. It wants fame, it wants a pat on the back, it wants attention. It's looking for love in all the wrong places, where you're never alone when you're within and you are being guided. And I cannot find words to say how incredibly beautiful it is to really hear God speak to you. The only prayer should be the prayer of silence. That is the only prayer that works. If you ask God to pay the rent, to fulfill all the things you think you need, you're not going to the divine I, you're going to the little I who thinks that God doesn't know what you need. The mystical I knows every need you have. And frankly, if you go for what you think you need, you can actually separate yourself from what can come to you, because you might not be going for the moon or for what is best for you, because you are asking God to please provide you with all of these things. It doesn't work that way. That's a block, believe it or not. That is separating you. The only prayer is silence. And let God do his work. And you see, that's hard to do. That's very hard to do. But it's worth the work of sitting and relaxing and saying to God, I am your servant. I know nothing. What's up? So, with our active commitment, we take care of the world. We don't worry about not having. We don't worry about money, limitation. We don't worry about anything, because in eternity, everything is supplied. So, it's a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it when you see that the miracle is miracles happen in your daily existence. Now, Joel says in The Mystical I, there really are no miracle workers. And I love this. He says, we're all transparencies. So that means simply we're individualized gods coming in to hear what the message is, to serve and glorify God in this life, each time we come here. And that can be many, 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 many times, and that's fine, because there's no death, there's transition, and you don't lose a thing when you move on to the next one. You have everything that you've ever learned, and you bring whatever you've learned in the past with you this time. So that you're a transparency. Try and hang on to that. If you're a transparency, that just means you listen. You listen for your very life, and that is what makes it work. And you know what? We're in a family of man where we do work with one another. And people will find you and they'll pick up on what you know without you having to tell them. And I've often mentioned on this program, be careful who you tell. If you live in a world where you are mystical and that you live by a voice that tells you everything to do, and you disregard and you make everything nothing, except you go with that beautiful guidance within you, which it has a love for you that is so overwhelming you won't want anything else. And it doesn't mean you're alone, you share. You share in any way that God will show you how to do that. So let me talk about omnipotence again. When you think you see a power that impresses you, if it's not about God, if it's not about love, if it's not about service, if it's not about yielding to receiving, then it's not the power that God is. There's also omnipresence. Now, let's say you're looking out at a baseball game and you're looking at these presences that are doing things that, oh my goodness, you see some father being tough on his son at a Little Leagues game, and you're getting all into that presence. And then you step back and say, if there's only one presence and that presence is God, then I must look and transform what I'm seeing into what it really is, because all human beings are God human beings. They're the allness of God. Everything you see, the worst person you know walks on water and is God. And that's a stretch for many of us, but if you can realize that you don't have to make friends with folks that are throwing things at you, but you can say, look, I'm going to see them for who they really are, and that's the gift I can give them in silence and in privacy. Let's get back to that word, privacy, because that's probably the most important sense that I got from Joel Goldsmith's work. Not telling everybody everything. That's where the power comes, and that voice holds your hand. As they say, he goes before you, he makes the crooked ways straight, he prepares mansions for you, he's holding your hands, he's bringing up the rear. If you can let go. So you've got omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience. All wisdom, all presence, all power. And that's what God is. That's what the mystical eye is, standing at the door and knocking, saying, open the door, I'm waiting for you. Please, I'm waiting for you. Come unto me. And we will work together, and I will help you serve humanity, because we're not here just to take care of ourselves. We can't help you. We can't be God people if we're not serving our fellow man. That's the way it works. We share. We yield to the power, and we share. So the mystical eye, when I thought I had read all of his books and I thought, oh, there can't be anything new, this just sort of boiled it right down to just have a listening attitude. And you create that by being still. So that means a meditation practice. And for many of us who have very hyper heads like myself, and who has marathoned and done a lot of very, very active things, to sit and be still requires a lot of quiet. And the time is given to you when the time is right for this actually to grow within you, within your creative sense. The time will come to you. Grace will absolutely surprise you with every move in your life when you realize that you're being guided. If you let go, watch what comes to you. Watch what leaves you. That's magical too. People can leave you that are no longer useful in your evolving journey with your mission. And everyone has one. Everyone has something God has sent them here to do. There is absolutely no getting around that. And if all the careers and all the family raising and everything you've ever been through are perfect. They're what was needed at the time until the door can open and we can be more specific with what our personal journey is all about. So with religions who do such beautiful work, and you know, the best work religions do that I can see is they share. They take care of people, they take care of the poor. I mean, that's such beautiful work. And any religion that can take you to your sense without saying, please listen to me, because if you listen to me, that's all you need to do. Instead of saying, go home and go within yourself, because you have everything that every mystic, every great master has ever had. That is the most beautiful knowledge you can ever have. You have everything. There is absolutely nothing you need. The eye knows your needs. So if you go again with your laundry list, it's going to separate you from hearing. You can't hear if you think you're pleading. You're pleading with someone who created you and who loves you unconditionally and wants you to have a full life in eternity, which was that womb of silence. That womb that has this beautiful rhythm where everything was in its place. Nobody tried to do anything. Nobody manipulated anything. Nobody was out for anybody else's expense. You had everything. And we can have that right here now. It's available, and it's what's happening too. Spiritually, there's an awful lot of knowledge going on about what I'm talking about, being in the Course in Miracles, that little still small voice. It's very, very huge. that we're all evolving that way. And it doesn't mean we don't hear very frightening things on the news, but we have to remember that if there is no death, that is a comfort with what we have to deal with. So we have to share. We have to be humbled. We have to be on our knees. Even when the clouds come, we have to just bow on our knees to say, okay, I'm lost for a moment. I'm uncomfortable inside. You can tell when you're uncomfortable inside. You can tell when your thinking has gotten to you, or whether you are mesmerized, hypnotized into something that you could be frightened about. That's your wake-up call, to stop, be still, and dissolve it into nothingness. And Joel always says, the punchline is always, the secret to all of this is meditation, dying daily, being on your feet, do your job, but take breaks, check in. How am I doing? How's my daily existence today? And remember, yesterday's mana doesn't exist. You don't have to know what's going on tomorrow. You can just be in that moment in full aliveness, in full creativity, with all kinds of energy and all kinds of new stuff that can really make you giggle, make you feel full. You know, we give to receive. We speak what we need to learn. We teach what we need to learn. And we don't have it if we don't give it. Givingness is huge in the mystical eye. To have it, you pour it out. Or you're just sort of revving. You're just sort of, you're not alive, you're a walking dead. But the minute you find ways to share and to give, and there's so many unique ways to do that, you have life everlasting right here. So yes, you can tune into where you originally were created. You can feel the divine love within you. You can share and give and be healthy and happy and have everything you need, even if that isn't if you're not a millionaire. We're not looking at stuff that is insane, because there's such a discrepancy right now on this earth plane, more today than ever. Just your needs are met. Your needs are met. In our last minute, my friends, I can only suggest that you read The Mystical Eye, because it goes beyond metaphysics. It goes beyond trying to heal a bad foot or take down a fever. It goes to something better than that. And it's so simple. It's the simplest things that can get by us. So I suggest you meditate. I suggest you accept God's grace for you, which is always uniquely creative and different. And it's always waiting for you. He stands at the door and knocks. Open the door, let him in, and commune with him, and you will have everything. I'm going to check out, my friends, but thank you for joining me so much on Awaken the Dream. I will talk to you again soon.